Welcome back. Well, so far, Wall Street has seemingly remained immune to growing international strife. But this week's warning from the Pentagon that the terrorists calling themselves the Islamic State pose a grave threat to international stability led Business Insider to lead with the question, can ISIL be stopped? Today, we pose that question, focusing on funding, to Aymann Mhanna, executive director of the Beirut-based Samir Kassir Foundation. The foundation was created in honor of the internationally renowned journalist assassinated for his fearless reporting. The Samir Kassir Foundation is the largest press freedom organization in the Middle East and spoke out strongly this week in response to journalist James Foley's brutal beheading by Islamic State radicals. Aymann Mhanna, thanks for joining us. Tell me about the statement that your foundation put out in the aftermath of Jim Foley's beheading.
It is very important for government to take swift action in order to stop the funding of terrorist organizations such as ISIS, to stop the influx of fighters towards Syria and Iraq. And we also called on all Muslim religious leaders and Islamic religious institutions to be extremely more vocal in condemning ISIS actions and having a clear Muslim voice that rejects the kind of behavior that ISIS has been spreading throughout the Middle East, including, unfortunately, the beheading of Mr. Foley.
They are a very well-funded organization. Where do you see some of their primary sources of funding coming from? The
funding of ISIS comes, according to various reports, from charities or associations or informal groups in various Islamic countries in the Gulf, but also in other Asian countries. At the same time, ISIS is a criminal organization, so hostage-taking is also one of their sources of funding, and there were various reports in the New York Times lately and other publications about ransoms in West Africa, as well as the Middle East, being a major source of funding. And finally, with the recent attack of ISIS forces on Iraq and the northern part of Iraq, we know that ISIS raided various banks and seized hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's an extremely well-funded organization. It is not easy to stop that funding.
Talk to me more about that. You're calling on Turkey and other countries to shut down their bank accounts.
ISIS doesn't necessarily open direct bank accounts with their names. However, there are shady movements of funds that come from local leaders, from people who coalesce in associations or in charities that transfer money to ISIS. There are very few countries in the Middle East that have bank secrecy. Actually, governments do have the ability to check these channels and check these movements of funds. So in the same way that they can track money that goes to drugs or other illegal actions, money laundering schemes, it is also extremely important to have a stronger scrutiny over funding going to terrorist organizations.
And just lastly, you have also been openly critical, as have many people here in the United States and overseas, of the Obama administration's handling of beating back ISIL forces. What is your take on what the Obama administration is doing?
During this whole period of time, the United States was doing nothing but lip service. And right now, looking at the situation in Iraq, nobody in the region is understanding why there is action against ISIS in Iraq and not in Syria. So this extremely, this picture that is unclear, that is very hard to understand, and gives the impression of double standards. And these double standards are exactly what radical groups such as ISIS use to create their conspiracy theories and to build support among underprivileged organizations and underprivileged constituencies. If swift action were taken when the Syrian crisis erupted and when the people were truly asking for reform, we wouldn't have seen the emergence of such a radical organization today with the power it has today. So everything is unfortunately too little too late in terms of international reaction to the work and to the behavior of this terrorist organization.
Too little too late. A sobering conclusion. Aymann Mhanna, thank you so much from the Samir Kassir Foundation for joining us on Washington Business Report.
Thank you for having me, and I hope that our next discussion will be when we're celebrating the release of all the other hostages and their safe return back to their homes, to their families, and to their loved ones. Thank you.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.